Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the meeting of the Adult Social Care and Public Health Select Committee. My name is Councillor Stuart Clancy, Vice Chairman of the Adult Social Care and Public Health Subcommittee, and in the chair for this meeting. Before we continue, I will go through the general housekeeping. This meeting is being held in person at County Hall and will be streamed live on the County Council's YouTube channel. The recording will also be available to view afterwards. Fire alarm test is not expected during the meeting. If the alarm sounds, we must evacuate County Hall. In the event of an emergency, please make your way to the nearest exit and meet at the muster point located on the main car park. Microphones. When using your microphone, please make sure it's switched on and speak towards it. This will tell the cameras to focus on you and ensure you can be heard on the live stream. When you've finished speaking, please push the button to turn off your microphone, and this will allow the system to pick up any new speaker. Item 1A, to receive apologies and details of substitution. Please, Megan.
Thank you. I have apologies from the Chair, Councillor Sheila Gurney, who is being substituted today by Councillor Judy Oliver, Councillor Sharon Blundell, who is being substituted by Councillor Stephen Aquarone, Councillor Tony White, who is being substituted by Councillor Will Richmond, Councillor Alison Birmingham, who is being substituted by Councillor Chrissy Rumsby, Councillor Carl Smith, who is being substituted by Councillor Brian Long, and Councillor Michael Dorby.
And I have an apology from Councillor Adams, with no substitute. Right, go on to item 1B, election of a Vice Chairman for the meeting. Please could I have any nominations with seconders for Vice Chairman for the meeting? If there is no nominations, I'm quite happy to chair the meeting, but I'm also happy to have a Vice Chairman. So if we have any nominations, please. Councillor Long?
I could like to nominate Councillor Bambridge, please.
Councillor Bambridge? Just a show of hands, please. All those in favour of Councillor Bambridge? Duly elected. Right, thank you. Item number 2, the minutes. The next item on the agenda is to agree the minutes of the Adult Social Care and Public Health Select Committee from the meeting held on the 14th of July 2025. Do members have any comments on accuracy they would like to raise? No comments? Thank you. We have item number 3, declarations of interest. Please, any declarations of interest? Item number 4, updates from the Chair. I have no updates. Item number 5, public question time. We have received no public questions. Item number 6, local member issues, members' questions. We have received no member questions. So therefore we go on to the first substantive item, item number 7, Benjamin Court, to receive a report by the Executive Director. We'll ask Mr. Clinch if he could present, please.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for the opportunity to introduce this report. So, as a reminder, at the last committee meeting, we considered a councillor call for action regarding Benjamin Court in Cromer. This is the part of the Benjamin Court building that did operate as a accommodation-based rearrangement unit provided by NCC has been used with other purposes prior to that, and then now was returned to the ICB and NHS Property Services, so not the other section of the building. So the committee recommended, following conversations, that you wanted officers to engage in conversations with the NHS, who own the property, to discuss the available ICS options to utilise the building and then report back. So we wanted to provide you today with a swift update back on our conversations to date and some recommended next steps. So firstly, regarding conversations we've had with the ICB since the last committee, so they recognise the issues regarding access to healthcare that we discussed last committee meeting, including specifically around hospital discharge, were supportive of the direction outlined within the NHS 10-year plan that moves more broadly towards care in community settings, but also highlighted to us the significant financial pressures that I think we're all aware of within the local NHS system, that mean in terms of the careful planning they're having to do around how that will be delivered and best value for public funds. So we've outlined also in the paper that they were clear in our conversations with us that they didn't feel, following the engagement that they asked Healthwatch to conduct on their behalf, that they could find an option that aligned with existing local provision models of care, other financially viable elements the ICB is currently pursuing that would allow them to use at that point in time Benjamin Court in a different way, and that they believe that their decision to hand back Benjamin Court to NHS Property Services, a national body, was the right conclusion. And that now it's with NHS Property Services in terms of seeking an alternative tenant for the building. They did also make some commitments in terms of asking NHS Property Services to keep both them and local community groups informed of the essentially the progression of those conversations that they were having, and also about more broadly keeping the provision of services in North Norfolk under review should new opportunities to invest in services arise, and that they'd fully explore those. So then more broadly than that, we've also had conversations since the last committee meeting around how these broader conversations will continue, and we've talked to both the ICB, Norfolk Community Healthcare, that provide community healthcare for this part of the patch, and other partners about that. So we did touch on it slightly at the last committee meeting, but ICS partners develop these type of services, intermediate care essentially, through the various structures of the integrated care system. Obviously, as social care and the wider council, we have an active interest in that. We lead on much of, as we discussed, home-based intermediate care, so home-based enablement. We're also relying on NHS bed-based care to support residents that we also support. Obviously, the ICB is actively interested in that area. District councils are as well, both in terms of supporting communities who rely on intermediate care, but housing is a key part of intermediate care officers. And finally, communities and residents are obviously interested in themselves as those that rely on intermediate care provision. So we've made a recommendation within the paper that although NCC, we're not responsible for bed-based intermediate care provision, and noting the point about Benjamin Court's current ownership within the NHS, that it does feel important that this conversation around intermediate care has a place to continue. So the recommendation that you'll find in the paper is to ask the Cabinet member who's joined us today to request that the ICS partners report on the provision, strategy and future development of intermediate care in Norfolk, and do so through the Integrated Care Partnership and Health and Wellbeing Board, and that would enable essentially a system conversation to continue, but bringing in those wider ICS partners that have the influence and levers over much of what we've discussed. And we have raised this with the ICB, who've been supportive of that as a step, and also provisionally discussed and agreed that with the chair of the ICP, Councillor Wymark. Finally, I just wanted to quickly add and bring to the committee's attention the building has been granted in the last few days Asset of Community Value status after an application was received by North Norfolk District Council and it's gone through their formal processes. So at a high level, essentially that means that if NHS Property Services seek to sell or lease the building, it has to be offered to the community first for a set period of time. If they wish to then put in an offer, can have a further set period of time to raise funds. I have confirmed NHS Property Services are obviously aware of that and have confirmed that with the ICB. So I'll stop there. Thank you for the opportunity just to introduce it.
Thank you, Mr. Clinch. Councillor Ackroyd, please.
Thank you, and I really would like to thank Nick Lynch and his colleagues for the quick response they provided this committee. As you see, I've managed to come back in a slightly different form to be able to look at today's paper. If I may, Chairman, can I make a couple of comments on the item? I must maintain that this facility should never have been removed by Norfolk County Council without consultation, and I remain of that view. We're only here because the Save Benjamin Court community campaign has been so robust in drawing to our attention the deficit that it's been left with. And yet I'm immensely grateful to officers for engaging with this issue so promptly and so thoroughly. I'm very pleased to have seen the supplementary agenda containing this report. And I think there's a lot to gain from us working as active stakeholders. I agree with what Nick has said. We have a great interest in this as a council, clearly, the job being done by the ICB when it comes to intermediate care. But I can't stress enough how we will have to be an active, if not activist, stakeholder in those decisions if we're going to fight for what our rural communities need. And let's be really clear, this isn't just about Melton Constable Division or North Norfolk. This is everywhere, probably including much of the suburbs of Norwich, given our population demographic around here. It's been mentioned in the paper, it's been fed back by the ICB, the challenges of rurality in healthcare provision. And this is really why I'm so motivated to carry on pushing this issue and why I'm asking for the committee's support to keep it on the agenda. And that is that so many things don't work by the numbers in rural areas, whether it's nursery school placement funding, which quickly leads to entire settings being unviable, or healthcare, even surgeries, dentistry, it just doesn't crunch out in the same way. And yet on top of that, we have, certainly in North Norfolk, the oldest constituency demographic in the country. Norfolk more broadly has this too. This has been seen as a burden for so long, but it's actually an enormous opportunity. It's an opportunity for cost saving if we can de-silo health and social care in practice. It's an opportunity to improve outcomes for patients because you or I will know at least one person each who has suffered from either delayed discharge in care or challenges when they're trying to recover, whether that's in an intermediate setting or at home. But most importantly, to show leadership. And I think the ICB, even before the change of leadership there, had made it very clear that they felt that frailty and frailty management in Norfolk was an area open to the opportunity of showing leadership. I think with the new chief exec in place, and by default of the geography, a new chairman as well, and that's likely to stay, or at least our bit of it's likely to stay together for the foreseeable future. I think we've got a really great opportunity to re-engage. I must just remind us that in rural Norfolk, to have a service taken away is just devastating. It's become the norm for so many things. And everybody understands the financial pressures that councils and the NHS are under, but we just can't allow a facility that is so perfectly positioned as this to be removed from the healthcare system. So I'm very happy with the recommendations put in the report. I'd just like to add that I and others, I really welcome us being really front-footed on this, being activist partners and stakeholders in the conversations with the ICB. And to remember that we have a group of people, a large group of people here, not just to serve, but through serving could potentially show a better way of dealing with the boundaries, the bridges, the gaps between health and social care. We should be able to be proud to do that better than anywhere else in the country here in Norfolk if we can muster the joint appetite to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Akron. I think that summarises it, and I tend to agree with what you say. I think the new recommendations will focus thinking on this area, and hopefully this will provide the building blocks to go forward based on where we've been. I think we're in a much better place now, and I totally concur with 99% of what you say. Councillor Watkins.
Come to committee so quickly after our discussion back in July, and again I thank Nick Clinch and the officers for their ongoing efforts with this. I think progress is already being made. I'm glad that the ICB will keep a very close eye on the provision of care services, reablement services in the Cromer and North Norfolk area, to ensure that they best meet the needs of the local population, and will be in a position to explore in greater detail any new opportunities that might arise. I think, as the report suggests, it's certainly a good idea that we get a report back from the Health and Wellbeing Board, as suggested in paragraph 3.3. I think that would be particularly useful moving forward, Just a couple of quick questions, if I may. With the closure of Benjamin Court, can I just ask how the department are looking to monitor accessibility and the effectiveness of the remaining reablement services in Cromer and North Norfolk to ensure that they do best meet the needs of local people? And can you perhaps also give more detail about, and it's alluded to in the report, maximising the role of the Cromer Hospital? Thank you.
Mr Clinch, thank you.
Thank you. So in terms of the ongoing accessibility of raiment provision within North Norfolk, so we have a really good, strong business intelligence support around monitoring the availability of raiment services, the volume, the use, the effectiveness of it, a wide range of measures that are used actively by officers on a daily basis, frankly, within the department. So that's something then we take up through our various governance structures. So absolutely that is there and is actively used, not just in North Norfolk to say, I guess we use it across the whole of the county, but it does go down to an individual lower super output area. Maximising the role of, and in terms of Cromer Hospital, so officers are from Norfolk County Council, specifically Adult Social Services, are involved in the ongoing conversations around that as well, and will continue to be so. Obviously, that's it sounds like at relatively early stages at the moment, based on feedback we've had from officers, but we will be part of that, much in the spirit of, in terms of we've laid out within the paper that we have a role within intermediate care and health and care more broadly. So yeah, I'm absolutely committed to being part of those conversations.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor Watkins? Thank you very much. Any further questions do we have, please? Councillor Alison Thomas, portfolio holder, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to make a couple of comments, if I may. Just a reminder, really, that inpatient reablement is the responsibility of health, although it had been a responsibility that adult social care had stepped into. And the decision that was taken in Benjamin Court was taken by officers. It wasn't a cabinet decision. So I just wanted to be absolutely clear around that. And I think it's really important that we look at intermediate care across the piece rather than intermediate care in a particular setting. Because we obviously, although Benjamin Court was located in North Norfolk, it was a service for Norfolk residents. It wasn't exclusively only for residents in the North Norfolk area. Although obviously by the geography there was another centre in Norwich, which tended to, obviously from a geographical point of view, take people from the south and the west potentially. So I just wanted to be clear about the recommendation of taking this to the Integrated Care Partnership and the Health and Wellbeing Board. I sit on that body, as does Councillor Carpenter, and obviously Fran Wymark, Councillor Wymark, is the chairman of that committee. Obviously, that is a public committee meeting, which you are all welcome to perhaps come and listen into, or equally, it's also screened via the Council's YouTube website, so you would be able to watch that meeting in progress, should you wish to. And obviously, there is always the prerogative. I think you're allowed to ask public questions at that meeting. Certainly at the Health and Wellbeing Board, you can ask member questions as well. I don't think you can ask member questions of the ICP because that's the Integrated Care Board's element of it. But I just wanted to remind members that there are opportunities to have your say there. So I think it's absolutely crucial. Intermediate care is the stepping stone either to people coming out of hospital and returning home safely, or potentially the stepping stone from going from home into less intrusive care and support initially. I think it is key that we remember that there are Norfolk residents in receipt of care, and we have a duty, all of us, to try and provide that in the best possible way. But I would alert you to the fact that although Benjamin Court sadly closed, the amount of increased home reablement we were able to do as a result of the changing in where the finances went, I added an additional 1,500 home reablement packages for people who were either returning from hospital or whom we were trying to maintain in their own provision. And certainly having had to grasp the nettle of adult social care provision for my own dad in recent weeks, I know that it's an incredibly challenging and stressful time for families, so I can only empathise with them and say that we're always here to try and deliver the best outcome for our residents in the most timely manner possible, given the huge demand that the service faces. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Councillor Akron, please.
Very briefly, and I'm grateful to Councillor Thomas for the points she made. She makes excellent points, particularly around the clarification of who took the decision, and that this setting was used by people, you know, across Norfolk, more likely to be north of Norwich, but nonetheless across Norfolk. I think the reason I'm so keen for us to take such a proactive role in this next step in requesting the ICS to produce this report on integrated care is that this authority understands social care far beyond the, dare I say, the NHS, because we've been doing it for a very long time. The officers in Nick's team and under the Directorate understand the challenges of rurality firsthand. And I think it has to be loudly spoken in those discussions, quite how important these types of provisions are. Can I just ask what the likely timescale is for this report and for the meeting that she's advertised, which I'm sure there'll be lots of people with an interest in viewing it?
I mean, I think that will be down to probably Councillor Wymark with the scheduling of the meetings. But just to also remind members that it isn't just county council members that are on the Integrated Care Partnership and the Health and Wellbeing Board. There are district representatives from each of the district councils. So there is an opportunity. There is quite a decent proportion of elected representatives that sit in that meeting. So I would say that if people have particular questions they want raised, that you do that through the district representation that is there, or through myself and Councillor Carpenter. You know, we can raise, if there are specific questions you want us to ask of the ICB, because I suspect it would be in the Integrated Care Partnership part of the meeting. We have two meetings that kind of run concurrently, but they're not one meeting. So we close the Health and Wellbeing Board, which is the County Council's committee, and then we move into the Integrated Care Partnership, which is the NHS arm. So they are two distinct committees, but out of convenience, because the same people need to sit in the room, it makes absolute sense to have them on the same day and at the same time. So, you know, that offer is there from me if there are specific things you want to ask.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Councillor Watkins, please.
Intermediate care and post-hospital recovery and focusing on expanded virtual ward capacity. And I think there we're told that the number of beds has increased to 170 back in March to, or projected to increase to 330 beds in March 2026. And that appears to be an important new innovation, a good idea in sort of driving forward the move towards community-based care. I wonder if we could have some more detail, if that's appropriate, Chair, about how the virtual wards actually work in practice. Whether that's something that we can discuss now or perhaps at some other time, I don't mind.
Thank you.
If you could just briefly now, and I think it's a good idea to discuss it at a later date, because I think it's obviously something which is very important, but, you know, the early heads up on it to make sure it's going to work is absolutely vital. But just a brief synopsis now would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, so at a really high level, essentially using different types of technology, including remote monitoring devices, various other bits and pieces. It's a way of someone being able to be supported within their own home, wherever that may be. If it's in their own home, could be including a care home, to be discharged from hospital or theoretically avoid having to go in, but still be under the professional support of a clinician who work within a hospital site. Rob Mack, who joined me last time, is one of the, in his community health role, one of the directors responsible for virtual wards. So I would suggest certainly it will come up as part of the conversation about intermediate care more broadly at the ICP. But perhaps for this committee, if you'd like some specific briefing detail on it overall and its implications for social care, we could absolutely provide that, because there is a link to social care in terms of support for individuals and its impact on our care staff.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Clinch. I think that would be useful for this committee to have a further insight into that, because, you know, obviously we're moving down that path, but, you know, I'm personally, I don't see AI, as the be-all and end-all to everything. So I think we need to know the mechanisms of how it's going to work, where it's going to work, and who's going to be responsible for it is going to be absolutely crucial. So I think with the support of the committee, I think a brief report coming back to this committee would be highly beneficial at an early stage. Everybody agree? Councillor Thomas.
Sorry, just to say that the virtual wards are already in existence. So this is about increasing the capacity of the virtual wards. So essentially it means that the monitoring that would normally be done by somebody going up to someone's bedside, or by, you know, someone like myself in a former world, walking past a bed and thinking, I just need to have a closer look at that person, that actually the technology that's in place can effectively do that, even though the person isn't in the same room. So it feeds back information about how a patient is, or a resident, I suppose, if they're at home, they're not a patient, is coping, and how their medical condition is manifesting.
Yeah, I think that's eminently sensible, but I would add that I think a report would be beneficial, because there's lots of different outcomes, lots of different individuals. I'll use my own mum as you would use Alison. I don't think a virtual ward would work too well for her. Councillor Long, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think something the portfolio holder mentioned, the additional numbers of virtual bedsides, and I think for most people, you know, if you're in a hospital and being treated, and when you're at a point where you oughtn't be in hospital, you know, where do you want to be? Most people want to be at home, and actually the provision put in place for people to be at home, you know, especially what we've just heard with the virtual world coming into play and monitoring people is fantastic. We're sort of wedded to the way that we've always done things, and I know this facility is a long way from my part of the world, as is the facility in Norwich. But I remember, you know, the olden days when they're convalescent homes, I think they were called, and they were, you know, aplenty. But the world has changed, and it's brilliant to hear the number of extra, you know, capacity that not running a facility has given for people to be, you know, looked after in their own home, and that for me is a benefit that's come out of this that can't not be overstated, really, because for most people, you know, when you're starting to feel right, you want to be home, and I know times when I've been hospitalised, you know, once you start to feel right, you start plotting with the other people in the hospital as to how you're going to escape, you know. So I think it's important that we get people into their own homes and provide the care to them, not provide the care from fixed buildings.
Thank you, Councillor Long. Councillor Oliver, please.
Just a couple of short observations, if I may. It's impossible to overstate how excellent Cromer Hospital is, and I absolutely think they should be involved, of course, in all discussions. Opposite Cromer Hospital, on the other side of the road, is the Cromer GP Group practice. It's a very large practice serving Cromer and the immediate villages around it. Presumably, you'll be talking with them as well. Just down from Benjamin Court, the building, is a very, very good facility called Halsey House. I don't know if they're on your list of people to talk with. They are absolutely first class, and they provide a whole range of care for people, often who served in the armed forces or the Navy and so on. They have a long-standing connection, but they are geographically all together. The hospital, the group practice, Benjamin Quarters, you know, the building, and Halsey House are all honestly within a few hundred metres of each other. And they serve a very large part of the Cromer and wider community. And I think you would reach a lot of views if consultation included those as well.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. So I think we have no more speakers. Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to give you an anecdotal insight into the changes in technology. I mentioned my father earlier. I live 250 miles away from him, but this morning I've been able to check on the app, the carers app that I have on my phone. I was able to look at what time the carer went into his house. I've learned that he's still in bed. He didn't want to get up and have a wash, but he'd had his breakfast. So from 250 miles away, I now have the peace of mind of knowing that somebody has had eyes on my dad and I know exactly what they've done and when. And, you know, I think that's, for me, that's been a huge insight. It's only been a week and I'm still a bit obsessed with checking up on how long they've been there and what they've done. But I just think that's just an example of how technology has grown, but how it can help to reassure people like myself who've got a loved one a long way away. And you can actually have a real-time update. You don't have to go and trawl through some notes or disturb the team by ringing them up. You can check there, and if there then is an issue, you can contact them directly. But in all intents and purposes, everything that you need to know is there. I just thought it would be an insight for members too, because it was quite a revelation to me.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Anybody else further? No? So we can go to the recommendations, please. Anybody like to propose the recommendations? Councillor Mackie, proposed by Councillor Mackie. Seconded, please. Councillor Long. Can we go to the vote? Right, we go on to item number 8, an update from the Chair of the Norfolk County-wide Community Safety Partnership Scrutiny Sub-Panel. We have Councillor Long doubling up today. Only one seat, I see though. If you could report, Councillor Long, would be great. Thank you.
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Chairman. It's a very long title. It gets abbreviated, but it's Norfolk County-wide Community Safety Partnership, and it's a scrutiny sub-panel. We previously used to report into Norfolk County's Scrutiny Committee, and with the changes to the Constitution, we are, obviously it was deemed that this committee was the most apt or most appropriate for the scrutiny sub-panel to report into. And with your indulgence, I will look to do that in a timely fashion that suits yourselves as committee members. We have met for just one time in this sort of municipal year so far. I was re-elected as chairman. We were concentrating the work of the partnership. I mean, it heads right back to 2011. Previously, there was sort of district-based scrutiny panels for community safety. They were merged into one Norfolk-wide one with obviously representation from the Norfolk County Council and each of the district councils. We have now been running in that form since 2011, and we now have it that the representation on the scrutiny sub-panel is the same as are on the Norfolk Police and Crime panel, and one happens in the morning and the scrutiny sub-panel happens in the afternoon. So in terms of what we've looked at as far as outlined within the report, areas of concern that were raised by the panel, there was a report on the Safer Norfolk Plan, Delivery Plan 2025 to 28. Part of that was still in sort of production as it came to us, and there was areas of concern regarding water safety, and obviously the committee was keen to see what is coming forward in terms of that element of community safety. It's a multi-agency partnership who involves Norfolk County, including trading standards and health, and obviously policing, the Police and Crime Commissioner. But in terms of work, forward work, we are very concerned regarding the proliferation of e-bikes and e-scooters, not just the ones that are official ones that we see within the city of Norwich, but also some of the unofficial ones that are being used around Norfolk, whether that's led to an increase in associated accidents and incidents, and obviously not least with recharging and the issues with for Norfolk Fire and Rescue Service. So it's a all-encompassing look at that has been requested. But I'm happy to take any questions from the panel about the work that we do and the forward work that we have in hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Long. Do we have any questions for Councillor Long, please? Councillor Sexton, please.
Shibley Sexton, thank you. I was really interested in the part on community relations. Especially, I was really happy to see there was a lot of focus on victim-forward and supportive approaches, which was really good. But I was concerned to see that there was very little on like preventative measures. Like, I don't know how many people in this room have ever been hate crimed, but it's not a pleasant experience. And it'd be really, there was a lot on mapping, but not on what was going to be proactive. And it'd be really lovely to see more focus on that and what's going to be done preventatively to avoid it. Because there seems like a large gap between prevent, which is focused on terrorism, and the everyday things that aren't terrorism but are also not good for people to experience.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There is a sort of vast differential, but if you're on the receiving end of any form of abuse, it's not nice or pleasant. So what I'll do, I will take that thought and consideration to the panel, because we do look at the big sort of prevent agenda stuff and haven't as yet looked at the other end of the spectrum. But it's, as I said, it's still very relevant to those on the receiving end, and actually at the moment community integration and well-being is more relevant than ever, I would suggest. So definitely something that we can consider.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got a few things for Councillor Long to think about and maybe come back if he doesn't know the answers. On the trading standards issue, on 8.874, I don't seem to have a page number, but I think it's good that people were told about it at the Royal Norfolk Show and with Take 5 and scam champions and scam ambassadors, but how do people that didn't attend the Norfolk Show find out about it? There is a whole, there are in the document. There are lots of referral points. So could we please have them? Could all councillors have those so that we know these things instead of just the people on this committee? That would be really useful. The links that are there, because, for instance, I didn't know how anybody would contact the IDVA service, and still don't know, but if I need to point somebody in that direction, then the link is useful for me, and I think it would be for other councillors. And there's also mention of a newsletter, and I think that would be good for councillors to have, even if we don't really want to print it off and pass it on to anybody, then we can, but we can do. Are there any articles about these scams in the papers? Because I think that could be very beneficial. My mother is no longer alive, nor is my father, so I use my 95-year-old neighbour, who I do quite a few little bits for, and she wouldn't have a clue how to find out these things other than somebody like me knocking on her door and telling her. And interestingly, I was looking at Facebook the other day, the Trading Standards page, and it mentioned people that knock on the door and say, you've got tiles loose. And I did actually have that a few months ago, and there was a slight loose tile, but it was going to cost me £800 to do that with this man that knocked on the door. He actually went and got his ladder, but he wasn't very impressed when I said I didn't have £800. I do, but I'm not going to tell him that. But recently, my own cousin in Fakenham has been scammed to the cost of £1,000. He paid £1,000 deposit for some insulation and never saw anybody again. And his brother looked at the county court judgments, and that firm had a lot of county court judgments which they hadn't paid. So I think it's really good that we've got the information through the agenda, but I think we need to be able to tell our residents, because we have lots of vulnerable residents of all ages. On the 8.875, which was about young people, will that come back to this panel? Because I'd be interested to know what, if it does, or will I have to look out for the minutes of your meeting? And just lastly, on 877, I would be interested in the data that is mentioned about the plans for e-bikes and scooters in Kings Lynn, because the centre of Kings Lynn, where I live, has narrow streets and narrow pavements. And I think we also have young people on bicycles going down the busy road into Kings Lynn, which is London Road, doing wheelies. They watch until you come along. It's happened to me. Then they pull out in front of you. And I've also seen an electric bike doing wheelies along London Road. So I think that information would be very useful to me. I think there was one more, but I'll leave that for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bambridge. Councillor Long?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I wasn't aware that all county councillors didn't receive the newsletter from the Community Safety Partnership. I receive it and just assumed that everybody else did. So if it's only going to members on the panel, and obviously the district members on the panel, we need to broaden that out so that all county councillors and all district councillors right across Norfolk receive all the information, and that in turn will provide some of the meat on the bones of the other points that you've made regarding further information, because the newsletter that they produce is very interesting, full of information and facts regarding let's go back to the scamming and scam things. Again, for information on the latest info on the scams and things, Norfolk Trade and Standards pages, and also I think the community safety teams pages will include information to those. And again, I believed that they were being circulated beyond and above just those people that they have direct contact with at things like the Norfolk Show. So again, that's information that's easily, links are easily emailable. So make sure that goes to, right out to all councillors. We're never too old or too young to be caught out by scammers, and I think that's part as well why we mentioned particularly the vulnerability of younger generations. The assumption is that the scammer is the person who, like you say, is a physical scam. You've got tiles on your roof and I'll charge you an awful lot of money to put them right, even though they're not really wrong, that sort of thing. But actually there's an awful lot that's moving to online, and therefore the awareness raising with the younger generations is important, because they spend their lives, their whole lives are often arranged via social media and so on, but there are people out there obviously up to no good. So raising that awareness is vitally important. Hopefully I've covered off all the points that you made, Leslie. Thank you.
Yes, certainly. Councillor Bambridge, please.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm sorry, I do apologise if I've missed the newsletter. I do read everything that comes through, but sometimes it may not go into my brain. We do get it, do we? So, right. But it's still, I still am concerned about elderly people who do not use, they don't use mobile phones, they don't use, and I know my neighbour, but I don't know everybody in the street a few along. And so I do think we need to realise that they are the ones that could be scammed. Thank you.
Councillor Long, any further comments?
Yeah, thank you. Only to say, I think for those that are not enabled with the e-world of everything being online, etc., they're probably in a safer place. I actually sat around my old late mum's house while she had a phone call from someone who was trying to persuade her that she needed to do something urgently with her computer and her internet. Well, she hasn't got an internet and didn't have a computer, so she knew she was, they were up to no good, but it's very easy with people who have, other issues, onset dementia, things like that, where they, are more likely to get caught out with these things. So it is important to raise awareness, and I'll look to the team as to how they can reach that sphere of the community, because the electronic versions don't necessarily cut it with them, does it?
Councillor Mackie.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman. I very much welcome Councillor Long bringing this on the agenda and answering the questions, because it is an important factor for many county councils, well, all county councils, that some of these things sometimes go unnoticed or unpublicised in terms of community safety, and they are the sort of bread and butter issues which we get in our post bags and are a concern to many of our residents. And there's probably a sliding scale in here in terms of the impact which they may have or may not. So I'd certainly like to commend Councillor Long on this and the people on the committee, and whether this would then be a sort of standing item coming here on a regular basis, because it said it met in July. I'm just wondering what the sort of programme of work is going to be going forward, because there are a number of big issues on here which I'd probably like to know more about. The one about supporting children affected by domestic abuse, fraud prevention, those sorts of things in particular probably need ongoing action. And also, I wonder if in the minutes of this meeting we could probably include the Safer Norfolk Plan for Delivery plan, because it's got 100 collaborative developed actions. I'd really like to be able to see those in a little bit more detail and see how they're progressing and how they're going to be measured in terms of outcomes and outputs. So it's really just to say thank you very much to Brian for bringing this, and I'd like to sort of see more detail. I think perhaps even some of these things could actually come here as actions and ideas for discussion. Finally, just to say thanks to the Norfolk Trading Standards. They do use social media very well and are very hot off the press when it comes to things like food that's been contaminated with metals or possibly salmonella. I always send those straight round to various community groups, and often people will say, thank you for letting me know, I was going to have that for my tea. So no, those sorts of things are really useful. It's a great service that team provides, and long may it continue. So just some observations, Chairman, and wish it well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mackie. If we could ask Councillor Long to take those observations on board, and hopefully, some of that data can come back through this committee at a future date. I think there's a lot of important work going on there, but it's a case of disseminating that work and making sure that the action points which Councillor Mackie alluded to are actually filtering through into action. I'd just like to make one observation myself. We all talk about the digital world. We all talk about doing this digitally, etc., etc. There is still a lot of people out there who don't use mobile phones particularly well, or they use very basic mobile phones. There's still a lot of people out there who don't use pads, laptops, PCs, whatever particularly well. There is a risk of digital isolation. There is a risk of these people falling through the cracks. So I just would like to highlight in anything we do, everything we do, this authority, that we must take due regards of these people. I come across a lot of them. In fact, just last week, I had contact with 3 people in that same position. So, it's all right what we're going to do, all the marvellous stuff we're going to do, but these people sometimes have nowhere to turn to. So it's important that they are not isolated through digital isolation. I totally concur that the digital world is important, the digital innovation is important, and all the stuff we're doing to provide complementary services and enhanced services. But please, 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 can I make a plea for those who can't engage with it? Thank you. Councillor Long.
Just in response to Councillor Mackie's request, the information that he's seeking, more detail, etc., is within Annex 1 on page 24 onwards of our last agenda from July. It should still be available online via the CMIS. And on the Norfolk County Council website, and that does run through each of the priorities and the activities that sit behind them, as to what Norfolk's doing about those various different subjects. So a very broad brush of everything that's going on, and the report that we had in July was the broad brush of everything that's going on. And then obviously the Community Safety Partnership will no doubt drill down into specifics, and as the scrutiny sub-panel, we will look at those in further detail, subject by subject, which is how we pulled out the ones that we did that are mentioned within the minutes.
Thank you, Councillor Long. That said, everybody finished? So we go to the recommendations. Having considered the report, committee is asked to note the update from the Chair of the Norfolk County-wide Community Safety Partnership and Scrutiny Subcommittee, Councillor Long. All those in favour, please? That's unanimous. Right, item number 9, the Forward Work Programme. Report from the Director of Democratic and Regulatory Services, page 23. Becky Ty is with us today to answer any questions that you may have on the Forward Work Programme. Thank you. Anything you wish to add or say?
Yeah, just to say to members that the plan that you've got, the draft plan, is obviously the culmination of that initial work programming session that you had in July. So hopefully that brings together some items to be looking at, and as was discussed, it will be under review, and if there's any issues that you want scoping out, then obviously please contact me so we can discuss that with the Chair, Vice Chair, and see where that fits for the committee to scrutinise going forward.
Thank you, Becky. Yeah, I know Councillor Gurney is, and I'm certainly very keen to make this committee worthwhile, to make this committee be able to help the Cabinet, help the portfolio holders, and inform and not just scrutinise. So we do need worthwhile, good pieces of work on the Forward Work Programme to ensure that, you know, people want to attend this committee, they feel it worth their while attending this committee, and it's going to end up in some positive outcomes for Norfolk residents. I can't speak for Sheila Gurney, but I'm sure she'd concur with this. There's no point sitting through committee meetings if we don't achieve very little. And it's really good to see the portfolio holder here observing the meeting, but hopefully we can use this committee as both a function of scrutiny and a function of ideas. Thank you. Councillor Watkins.
The number of items issued there, I wondered how we're going to, how they're going to be sort of brought into the forward job plan moving forward. What's the plan, please, for those?
Yeah, Becky, please.
So what we've looked at is scoped out the next couple of meetings for the committee. And then it will be looking to scope out those issues to see what we discussed is, excuse me, not just bringing something to committee, but bringing it in a timely manner that fits in with the work that officers are doing, how that approaches strategies. So part of my role is to scope that out with the officer team to ensure that not only are you getting a timely report, but also that you can add value to any work that's in train on any particular item. So obviously we're not losing anything that's been discussed or raised by members. It's about having that continuous process, and in the meantime revisiting them in between meetings to see when it is we can schedule them for committee review.
Thank you, Becky. Right.
Yeah, Chairman, just a thought, and I mean, obviously it's slightly different because I'm here as a sort of visitor today. On the children's equivalent of this, I'm very keen to keep the statistics and figures, performance data coming to the committee that used to come forward to the Children's Services performance meeting that certain members were involved with. I know there was an equivalent for adults, and I just wondered if that strand of work, those performance data and figures, will form part of your agenda, not least that sometimes those performance figures highlight the good work that's being done across the county, both in adult services and children's services, but also can highlight areas that perhaps need further scrutiny.
Thank you, Councillor Long. I've just been informed that in essence, yes, the key signs will be coming through to this committee, but they've been delayed because of the Adults Transformational Project, which is ongoing. And hopefully we'll be getting these in January, because I think I agree with you. It's important to preempt a problem before we've got one. Councillor Mackie?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm just looking at the forward programme, and it's got, you know, 1 or 2 things on there for each of the following meetings. Then at the bottom there is proposed agenda items to be considered, and there are some of the more meatier, you know, longer term, greater impact agenda items, such as the social care employment pipeline. That was something that we discussed at our meeting about forward look. How do we work with the University of East Anglia, which we've always traditionally had a good relationship with? How could we work with the local colleges, young people leaving care, etc., who could perhaps go into our care sector? And then the other one is the CQC care home ratings for our care homes, another important one for us in Norfolk. We know that some deliver exceptional services and others are in need of improvement. So I'd like to sort of see those somewhere on the agenda, perhaps in January. You know, this year is sort of running out in terms of, you know, heavy lifting in terms of activity. But perhaps in January, if we could at least put one of those on the forward plan, that would be great. Particularly, my particular interest is about local employment for young people, and how there is a match-up between that and social care provision. But that's just a personal view, but I just wanted to flag it. Thank you.
Heavy-duty pieces of work there, and yes, let's certainly get at least one on for the agenda for January, because there's an opportunity there to look at some very, very important issues for Norfolk as a whole, and I think the subjects you alluded to are very important, and I'll ask Becky if we can get those on the agenda for January. Everybody happy with that? Councillor Thomas?
Thank you, Chair, for indulging me. I made the mistake of shutting down my laptop too soon. Have you got the adult social care transformation scheduled for a meeting in the near future? Because that's certainly something that I would welcome members' input on.
That's a proposed agenda item, but not on any date.
I would just say, from my perspective, I'd like members to see that sooner rather than later. Ian's done a huge amount of work, and we've already got, we're sort of almost ready to go. And that is key. The transformation of adult social care is key to our financial sustainability. So I would want to share that with you and have your eagle eyes on it as well as mine at the earliest opportunity, really.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Thomas. I'll ask Becky if we could get that, as you rightly say, the earliest opportunity. It'd be nice to get it in this year's programme. Yep.
Yeah, thank you, councillors. Obviously, when we did this, we weren't quite sure of the timescales for bringing that paper and publication to this committee. So obviously that's excellent. We can work to get that to the committee, and also that wider understanding of what transformation looks like, which will underpin the further scrutiny that undertakes on any particular aspect of adult social care. So we can work on that revised schedule that we've got.
You may just need to check whether it's, because I assume it's got to go through Cabinet. So I'm assuming there will be a time scale, but I'd like this committee to have had the opportunity to pour over it before it goes through the Cabinet process, rather than, I'd rather pre-scrutiny rather than post-scrutiny, if you see what I mean.
That's eminently sensible, because if there is issues, it preempt the problem before it becomes a problem. I'm sure everybody shares that. Councillor Mackie.
Yeah, just for the minutes and to take some sort of decisions, could I propose that we try and at least have that on the agenda for November the 10th? I know we said we could, but just to capture it in the minutes, I think it'd be really, really worthwhile and help the Cabinet member, for us to give an extra pair of eyes over it.
Yeah, that's eminently sensible, and we'll ask that to happen because I think, again, it's timely. It will help inform the Cabinet. Sorry, also I don't wish to talk as if you're not here. It'll help inform the Cabinet member and, you know, add some value to the decision, add some value to the process. So, yes, let's do that. Thank you very much. Anybody else got anything else? Thank you very much. Close the meeting at 3 o'clock exactly.